Well, patch 14.20 just came out and there's a lot of things to talk about. After the chaos that was 14.19, it was expected that Riot would balance some things out this patch, and they did, especially for ADC. Also, a new Kaisa skin was just announced for 14.21 and it looks decent, but we'll talk about that in another video. So like before, I'll cover the changes that matter for Kaisa, then mention our builds and the ADC tier list for 14.20. Alright, let's get started. The first item we need to cover is the static nerf. Static is losing 5% attack speed, going from 40% to 35%. For Kaisa, this change sucks a little bit, since it does hurt your evolution. In 14.19, after buying static, ridge blade, and your boots, you would get evolution at level 9 minimum. Now it's level 11, which means that if you're not fed, you should not feel the changes, since on average you get RB at level 11 anyway. But if you're fed and you get Rage Blade early, well, it will suck a little bit. But overall, the static nerf doesn't really change anything for Kaisa builds. Next up, we have the sad change to Essence Reaver. The price is going down to 2,900 gold. The recipe is changing from BF Sword to Pickaxe. The AD is down by 5, and finally the haste is also down by 5. The haste and the AD change doesn't matter that much, just makes things a bit more annoying, but the biggest change is the removal of the BF Sword. If you watch my guide, you know that my second best option for hybrid is going for ER plus Rage Blade plus Nasher. But the biggest selling point of that build is the fact you can get Q evolution super early with BF Sword, plus Pickaxe and a long sword. Since BF Sword is now gone, you cannot get Q evolution anymore. Even if you buy 2 pickaxes in a claw field, it's still not enough. So yeah, this change really killed the hybrid build with Essence Reaver. Okay, next up we have Collector. Same thing as Essence Reaver, the BF Sword is gone and replaced by a pickaxe, but the price is going down, and finally the AD is down by 10. Overall, this is a pretty nice buff for Collector, and yes, on paper, it's possible for Kaisa to use this. Finally, the last item we need to cover is the change to Ludens. It's losing some damage on the passive, but for Kaisa, it's not the biggest deal. Sure, you have a bit less burst, but it shouldn't hurt too much, since what really matters is the AP stats we get, so yeah, you can still use Ludens, and no, AP Kaisa is not dead. Anyways, that should cover all the item changes for 14.20. Okay, let's talk about builds. Now, I don't have a script here. The reason why is that I'm in the middle of a midterm exam, so I don't have the time to edit everything, but I'll make sure to talk slowly so you can get all the good information for builds in 14.20. Okay, let's get started. So, for Hybrid Kaisa, the best build remains the same as before, which is static into Ridge Blade, into Nasher, with your attack speed boots, and then you can get something like a Dead Cap and Zhonya's to finish the build. That is your common hybrid Kaisa build that works in most situations. Now, if you face a bit more of a tanky composition like before, you can go for Liandry's into a lot of HP, or you go for Voice Staff, and then you finish it off with a Dead Cap, for example. That is perfect into tanks. The second option you can go for this patch, if you don't want to build static, I know some people don't like this item, is to go for Kraken Slayer. There you go. And by the way, remember, for Kraken Slayer, you want to buy a call to get your Q evolution at level 10. Remember to buy this. Now, Kraken Slayer does give you a bit more damage in static, but static remains the better option for Kaisa in 14.20 because it's more comfortable, it's easier to build. You should only go for Kraken Slayer if you're really fed. I know it sucks that we only have one option, but it's really the reality here, is that static on paper is simply better in 80% of the cases, and Kraken is somewhat better when you're really fed. That's it. Now, the last option you can go for is to go for Essence Reaver. I know I said the build was dead, but it's not really dead. It can still be used, but in a specific situation if you want to poke. So the build is simple. You go for Essence Reaver into Ridge Blade, into Nasher, and then you go for Horizon Focus and Dead Cap. This is a really solid poke Kaisa build, while still being able to get evolution and to act as an ADC. But again, the only reason why I would ever go for this build over a static or a Kraken Slayer is if I'm facing a lot of squishies and I know I want to poke. If I'm facing, for example, a Nidalee, a Kidlin, a Zerat, So a lot of squishy with range. In this situation, it's better to go for poke with this build compared to Kraken or static. But it's one situation, so it's really niche. Next up, let's go over AD. For AD Kaisa, here nothing has changed. Static into Rage Blade, into Turnus, into Squishies because of the armor and MR it gives you. Or if you face fighters and bruisers like Darius, Garen, Yone, champions that like to run you down, you can go for Static, Rage Blade into Navari or Phantom Dancer. And finally, if you're facing a lot of tanks, you can go for Bork into LDR. Works perfectly. And if you don't want to go static or you get really fed, like for hybrid, you can also go for Kraken Slayer instead of static. There we go. Now, before we go over AP Kaisa, there is a new build I want to show you for 15.20, and this new build is the return of our friend Collector. Now, on paper, Collector works. The build is really simple. You want to go for Dirk into 2 pickaxe. This gives you your Q evolution, which is cheaper than buying a static, and then you finish Collector, finish your Rage Blade, and then get Nasher. On paper, this is a solid build. It works. The only issue is that Collector has always been a bit of a meme item on Kaisa, so I need to test it. I need to test it more to give you an answer on is this actually something you should go for or not. But if you want to try something new, or if you're tired of playing static Kraken, or if you like Collector, then go for it and tell me in the comments if you liked it or not. Alright, let's finish off with AP Kaisa. Now for AP Kaisa, what's funny here is that the ER change was both a buff and a nerf. Let me explain. When you play AP Kaisa, the main objective is to get W evolution as fast as possible. So, since ER is cheaper, this means that not only I get my Q evolution faster, but I get my W evolution faster. So, for Kaisa, AP Kaisa bot lane, the best build is still ER plus Longford, then you buy 2 tomes and 1 rod. This give you your W evolution, then you finish off the Horizon Focus, and then you finish Shadow Flame. There we go. And Sorcery Boots. The only issue with the ER change is since we lost 5 AD, you now need to wait all the way until level 17 to sell your Longford. That means that you're gonna be stuck with a Longsword for until level 17, which sucks a little bit, but to be totally fair, even with this, ER remains your best option if you want to go for a full AP Kaisa build in bot lane, because it gives you early Q evolution, early W evolution, allowing you to fight early, to poke early, which at the end of the day is more important than you being stuck with a Longsword. There we go. Now, for AP Kaisa in solo lanes, which means mid lane or top lane, you can also go for the ER build if you are snowballing, if you have an easy matchup like Teemo or Talon and you just want to stomp them, or if you face a more casual matchup, a more chill matchup like Ornn, Malzahar, Anivia, where you basically farm for 15 minutes doing nothing, then you can just go for the classic AP Kaisa build, which is Manamune into Ludens, into Horizon Focus for a cheap option, or Shadow Flame when you're fed, or Voice Staff into tanks, and with Sorcery Boots. There we go. It takes longer to get Q evolution, it takes longer to get W evolution compared to ER, but it will give you a better scaling compared to ER. There we go. And that should cover every build for 14.20. Before we end, let's quickly go over the Kaisa ADC tier list for 14.20. This was the one for 14.19, and this is the one for 14.20. Overall, nothing much has changed since most of the ADC buff and nerf were not that big to change really anything. But I did drop Twitch to the easy tier and put Varus back into the OK tier. Twitch suffered a lot from the Bork nerf, and right now is really easy for Kaisa to deal with since you can just burst him down and he doesn't really have the tools to answer your damage. Meanwhile, although Varus was nerfed a lot, it got better recently, and since his poke can be really annoying to deal with as Kaisa, I put him back into the OK tier. And there you go, this should cover everything you need to know for this patch, and with that said, I hope you enjoyed, and I'll leave you with a funny Vanguard bug that happened in my recent game. Right? Please fix.